Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and this unboxing is on Sandalwood mala beads. Mala beads are beads that you usually see on people's wrists, and it is a bit contemporary now to have as a piece of jewelry, but there's a meaning behind this. I got my first set of mala beads when training with Deepak Chopra and David Simon out of the Chopra Center in Carlsbad, California. I became a yoga teacher after 200 hours with the Chopra Center, and also another 200 hours at Total Body Yoga in Mundaline. And I really enjoyed teaching people the techniques of yoga and how to get through a class, but more importantly, how to feel really good by the last 2 to 3 minutes of the class. And that was the most crucial. I had people, mostly women, unfortunately, but I remember a guy, a 230-pound football player, while I taught at Northwest Community Wellness Center. And he was very muscular, and I was wondering what drove him there. I didn't get a chance to really dive into what brought him there, but I remember he tried his best, and what stood out was he kept on going, and I admired him for that, and I helped him correct when I saw him struggling. I just said, take it easy, just try it this way. That's what we do when we teach yoga. We go around to observe the class, make sure everybody's okay, and we guide just to teach a better pose in case somebody's struggling. You don't have to hit the pose like a yogi. You just have to try to do your best to express that. And he did his best, but I remember one day I could hear when we hit Shavasana, which is a relaxation pose, or technically called corpse pose at the end. We just do that to allow the students to really reflect on what they feel, how they've accomplished 60 minutes of something that's pretty arduous, whether they put something into it or not. And I could hear him sniffling, and I thought, no, he can't be crying. Then I just made sure he was okay, and he came up to me afterward and said he was very thankful because he's never felt that good. Well, he hadn't felt that good in a long time. So obviously it released something in him, and that's the objective, is for a teacher not only to get through the class, but also to empower somebody to get better. And that's what I wanted to show you is when I go through the smell of, so let's go ahead and unbox it. So let's unbox this, but when I smell sandalwood, whether it's through somebody else's beads or if I get an essential oil and it reminds me of the smell of sandalwood, it brings my brain right back to 2009 when I was training. And to have something that brings you right back to when you were youthful and things were cool, it takes you almost like a time machine back into better times, possibly. And it makes you reflect. And I think that if you have a picture, if you have a memory, that's fair. If you watch something on TV, say, oh, I remember that movie, it came from the 80s. But if you can close your eyes and you just smell something when you're about to fall asleep and it brings you right back to good times, really good hormones. And, we take Zoloft, we take sleeping pills to let go of a lot of hormones synthetically, chemically, but why not do it on your own? And it can be done. I mean, you can't expect to just drop into your first meditative class and have a transcendental experience. It takes practice. Just like exercise in the gym, you can't expect that you'll have really beefy muscles with one round of exercise. It takes time and practice, but that's why it's called a practice. You have to keep on refining, keep on doing, keep on learning, keep on chiseling away at that. Wow. So I just took this out of the bag. This is, now, hopefully it's the real sandalwood, but that's what it looks like. But hopefully it's real sandalwood. However, it is pervasive. Now I have frankincense that's heated up in this thing. So I light this when I'm meditating. I have it off to the side, and I usually have this holy water with Mary in front of it, and it's kind of cool. It reminds me of my mom. My mom got that, I believe, from Lourdes. She used to pray with it, and I have taken it over since she passed. But I usually will do that twice a day. So full disclosure, I usually meditate twice a day. I start the day with meditation and end the day with meditation. I think it's a good way to start the day and then get ready for the challenges of the day. It's also a good way to end the day and say thanks, and then hopefully get the brain to relax, go into slow brainwave, and then dive into sleep. There's nothing worse than you go to sleep and then you have this little nugget of a problem that you just try to push down and it keeps on coming back up. That's going to make for a fretful sleep. no sleep means usually exhausted wake, and then you're going to set the next day up with another exhausted, difficult, high caffeine day. So I think if you bookend your practice, and whether it's a half hour to 3 hours of meditation or 2.5 to 5 minutes, I think it's still empowering, especially if you can get through the first 21 days, because it usually takes about 21 days for a habit to become easy to do. The brain has this thing with dopamine and acetylcholine that if you are asked to learn a new task, the brain will say, do we have to? Because you'll have to expend a lot of energy to learn the task. But if you keep on repeating the task, the brain starts to recognize it's a pattern. And when the pattern is made, it can take up the same neural network, and then it effortlessly becomes reflexive. When it's reflexive, no energy. And that's why you usually have to do something for a while before you say, I kind of like it or I don't like it. Because at first it's usually, this is so arduous. But that's why I say 2.5. I mean, people usually take 5 to 10 minutes to poop, and 2.5 to 5 minutes. I don't know that you'll get the serotonin release, but at least it'll start you on your way. After 21 days, okay, go to 5 or 7.5 minutes. And then after another 21 days, keep on working your way up. But it does take time. So those of you who do yoga, good. But if yoga is only once or twice a week, what are you doing the other 5 days a week? Or the other 7 nights a week if you're not in yoga class? So I think it's a good entry level thing. Those of you who go to church on Sunday or go to temple on Sunday, I appreciate that. Or even if it's online, that's fine. But what you do the 7 nights, you have to have a regular practice. So if the brain is exposed to it often enough, it becomes reflexive. When it's reflexive, piece of cake. And then you can incorporate that into your wheelhouse and then adopt another thing that you can work on. So anyway, this is sandalwood. When I smell it, even trying to overcome the frankincense, I can smell it. Now it does smell like if it could be the wood, it could actually be sandalwood, $20, I don't know. Or it could be wood, regular wood that was just soaked in oil. It doesn't matter. To me, I'm going to use this in a way that will remind me of my time at the Chopra Center and help me dive into meditation. So the reason they're called mala beads, and there's 108 of these, not including the first bead, but there's 108 of these that go around. The rosary, for those of you who are Catholic, this is my mother-in-law's rosary from the Vatican. It's made of rose petals. And I love this. I keep it in this container with the Pope's face on it because I'm trying to preserve the smell of rose petals, because it reminds me of my mother-in-law. So again, these things harken back. And whether you have the smell that you use of the 5 senses to remind you and ground you before you do your meditative practice or your devotion, or whether you just have beads or rosary, or I'm not sure what they do in the synagogue or in the Hebrew practice, but whatever it is that you have, most of us have been exposed to something from childhood and moving forward. And it's easy to bring that back out. You just go into the practice. I went back to confession for the first time in like 10 years last month, and I had to tell the priest I forgot what to say, but he was very forgiving, and we had actually a therapeutic session, which I was very appreciative of, one of the churches downtown, and it was cleansing for me. And again, I'm Catholic. I used to pray before my track meets. I'd pray before my bodybuilding meets. I would win everything, so maybe my prayers were answered. Who knows? But regardless of winning or losing, I think it still grounds people. It gives you a sense of belonging. So to know that other people have preceded you for centuries and the practice that you're doing is old, I think it makes you become a part of something. So nowadays, we're very separated, and that's technically what triggers depression to come on when you don't have connection. But whether you do some form of practice, and I'll show you this in a second, or whether you come with me on an excursion and we hit the top of 14,000 feet in Colorado that not too many humans can hit, you have a sense of belonging to a greater cause. And sometimes when you hit that, when you feel that, your problems become very small. And we all have our problems now, whether it's economics or medical issues or pain and suffering or mourning. When you put yourself in the scope of humanity over the centuries, it's like, okay, I guess my problem's not that big. I'll get through it. And it makes you see the light of a new day. So just with seeing that, you change your posture. Your hormones get released, and you get hungry again, and your face changes, the light comes back, and when that all happens, you win. So that's why it's important to intercede and inject this kind of practice regularly in life. So if you don't have a religion and you don't have a practice, I'm just going to teach you. You don't have to have mala beads, but at the Chopra Center, they gave us a mantra. And that's why malas do what they do. You just repeat. If you have a mala bead, you just roll. It's supposed to be held in your left hand and supposed to be on your left wrist, but you just roll the bead for the mantra recitation. And we're not supposed to tell our mantras that we're given, but mine was, who cares, I guess? Om Daim Namah. And that was the sound that the earth made on my birthday when I was born. So I just roll Om Daim Namah, Om Daim Namah. I just keep on rolling this till I'm all the way around 108. And honestly, it takes about 5 minutes. But during the 5 minutes, I repeat that mantra over and over again. Or this way, with 54 beads of the Rosary, I'll just go around and do Hail Mary. And then I'm supposed to do the Rosary in succession, 5 rounds of Hail Mary and Our Father. But if I just keep on going around and around and around, it's so repetitive, it gets to be a mind instrument. And that's what mantra means, mind instrument, because you fall into a trance. And even if you were at 5 minutes, even if you were thinking about something before, something keeps on trying to pierce your thoughts, you are allowed to keep on going with a mantra, and it gets pushed away and you just ignore the thought. It's called monkey mind. When something comes in and you just observe it, that's cool. When something comes in and you act on it, and most humans have 3 thoughts per second, that's a lot of thoughts. And if you keep on chasing every thought, you will infinitely be busy with something else and you won't get anywhere. So sometimes you just observe the monkey going around, and eventually the monkey calms down. That's the old thinking. So that's how I do the mantra recitation. I might do 1 round doing that mantra that I was given, or I might do several rounds until I feel good. I sometimes will combine this with breath exercise, because you don't have to actually verbalize it. You just say it in your mind. And if you do this is what I used to do. I don't do it anymore because I can dive right into it. 4-7-8 breathing, and I'll put a link down below. You take a breath in for 4 seconds, and you hold it for 7 seconds, and you let go over 8 seconds. All this is physiologic mechanisms to instill a relaxation response. So when you do this, it keeps the mind busy so that you can just observe instead of act on. And you fall into a repetitive trance. And what do slow brain waves do when you're about to sleep? They go slower, but they just go into repetition instead of beta waves that bounce all over the place when you're trying to problem solve algebra. So if you can start doing Om Daim Namah, Om Daim Namah, Om Daim, or Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou. You just keep on repeating that over and over again, you'll fall into a trance. And if you want to be very neutral, I learned from Herb Benson, who found the relaxation response out of Harvard. I learned that all you have to do is just recite a prayer, a word, a phrase, or a sound. And if you just repeat it over again in your mind, eventually the brain will slow down its brain waves and just secrete serotonin, oxytocin, the love hormones. Then you start to change your DNA. So I think it is worth it to try, whether you pick mala beads, you have a mantra that's given to you, or you just say, I am going to win, I am going to win, I am going to win, or I am peace, I am peace, I am peace, and you just repeat it. It doesn't matter. You can even do the lyrics of a song that you learned or you love that resonates with you, but if you keep it repeating it over and over again for your average 108, eventually you become calm. So one more thing, the way we do this, or the way we set up with position, it is important. So I'm sitting on, this is a Zen Pillow. So you can get these online too. It brings up your pelvis a little bit, and then I usually will sit in cross-legged. You don't have to sit cross-legged if you have bad knees. But this is something I made when I was studying how to meditate at the Chopra Center. So just 6 by 2. I just cut it in half, and I took old cushions and an old bag that I got from the Claremont Herb Shop, and I fashioned this out. So I learned this from my Sifu, Brene Ryan. She made her own when she studied in China. And the way you use this, as you see, it sits like this. You just put your feet in between and it props you up so that you might be on your knees, and I'm just sitting. So if you want to see this from the side, hopefully you can see this. I'm just sitting like this. So it's comfortable. I am on my knees, but I'm putting most of my weight on my butt. So my knees are just bent, touching the floor gently. You can have a cushion down below, and you have to sit up with a good posture. Theoretically, in Ayurveda, your chakras should be aligned properly. So you want to sit like this. The Zen Pillow is also designed to give your butt and pelvis a little bit of a lift. And it's supposed to be in a neutral tilt, not too much anterior posture, just a neutral tilt, because that's where the root chakra is, the sacral chakra, and all the other 5 chakras up above. So if you sit in good alignment, which you probably should be sitting at, this is neutral. And if you sit in good alignment, the theory is the energy flows more. And then when you do the mantras, and you don't have to do it with the left hand, you can do right-handed if you want. If you do the mantras, then you're not supposed to let this thing touch the ground. Eventually you get to, and maybe you have some essential oils, or you burn some incense, you quiet down the room, you turn the heat down a little bit, you make sure you're comfortable, and then you just do your thing. And you breath exercise. If you don't have a mantra that you want to do, I think that's fine too, but you can also do breath exercises, 4, 7, 8 breath, where you just take in 4 seconds like I described, 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale. You hold it for 7 seconds, you count to yourself. And then you relax and blow it out for 8 seconds, slow. And the mechanism of that is a fast inhale fills your lungs. Holding it causes a parasympathetic response. Exhaling slower also engages even more of a parasympathetic response. Parasympathetic response is usually slow pulse rate, good digestion, better sex, low blood pressure. Sympathetic response is high blood pressure, fast heart, sticky cholesterol. It's good for fight or flight, but we're not supposed to be in that all the time. So you always have to balance things out, and that's the crux of this problem. The crux is that we have to have some form of practice to offset the stressors of the day. And now all you have to do is turn on Netflix, and you'll be stuck there for a while. If you turn on the news, you'll hear about COVID or elections or some other crap like that. And when you're supposed to be relaxing at the end of the day and you just turn this stuff on, I mean, it'd probably better just watch Dean Martin, those of you who don't know, or a comedy. If you just watch comedy, like comedians in cars getting coffee. I mean, that is, even if it's old, I just keep on watching Jerry Seinfeld and it makes me laugh. And it's like, oh man, especially the one where he's with Jamie Foxx. But anyway, so it is nice to have good emotion, and interrupting your day is cool. But if you have it regimented, I think it's even cooler. So hopefully this gives you a couple of ideas on how to settle the mind, how to begin a calming practice. And then as you pass the 21-day mark, if you're successful, it's easy to get 2.5 minutes. I mean, it's a big setup for 2.5 minutes. Then you go forward, and if you have Netflix, you can get Headspace. It's a really cool app, I guess, that I just watched. Very explanatory by one of the guys who is a Buddhist monk, or at least he studied Buddhism. And again, you don't have to have a religious sect, but I think knowing what they went through, what established groups have done in the past to get to a level of calm, and it's been demonstrated. The University of Madison, Wisconsin, with Richie Davidson, they looked at fMRIs and EEGs for monks, and they found that these guys had brains that were bigger than usual. And you don't want the opposite, which is usually dementia. You want a robust brain. If you even look at Herb Benson's work, Jeff Dussek, they found that meditators, early meditators or beginner meditators and non-meditators, the guys that were full-blown meditators and beginner meditators had better DNA expression than the non-meditators. So there's something that happens. Number one, you grow brain cells. Number two, you can turn on DNA. Now, as far as what the DNA does, not sure, but just the fact that all you have to do is meditate and you can trigger DNA to do something cool. Obviously, it doesn't cost anything. It's not an expensive medicine. It's not a Parkinson's disease medicine that'll rob you. I mean, I would do it, but sometimes people are stubborn, and that's okay. Just do it on your own. But there's so many other things out there that it's sometimes a little confusing. So this is what I do. Hopefully you can adopt. Find your way. There's always a way out. Don't think that you're alone. And if you want to, subscribe to me on my YouTube channel, and because I do videos on meditation, cannabis, cholesterol, and by the way, I have a cholesterol, heart disease, natural statin lowering meeting on February 6th. I'll put the link down below. If you have any things, I'll be talking about and teaching breath exercise there too, because it does lower blood pressure and it gives you longevity. So come by, it's free, but there's limited spots because of COVID. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next video.